Hello and welcome to this episode of Vitam Virtual. Today in the studio we have Arthur Crossmeyer, who is an animal nutrition consultant from Austria. Welcome, Arthur.
Thank you, Mikkel. Thanks for the invitation.
So Arthur, the past few years gut inflammation has gained more and more attention due to the impact it has on animal production. So in your opinion, what is gut inflammation and the negative impacts of it?
Inflammation generally is a very normal and physiological mechanism to fight against infections, to fight against viruses, pathogens. So this is nothing special, but inflammation is extremely energy demanding, so it costs a lot of energy. It increases the weakness of the gut against pathogens, because it weakens the permeability of the gut wall. And finally, it makes animals just more sensitive to other stress factors. So all in all, we need to take care that the inflammatory process, or let's say the inflammation in the metabolism, is as low as possible.
And these influencing factors that you speak about, what would you say they are?
They are, of course, the best known are the viruses and the pathogens. So if we have a pathogenic infection, the reaction is inflammation in the gut or inflammation in other tissues. But another important inflammatory precursor is physiological stress, is oxidative stress. And finally, the process of inflammation feeds itself. So if you have inflammation in your body, there are inflammatory markers who keep the inflammation going on, because this is important to fight against these invaders, to fight against these inflammatory markers and factors. So that's why inflammation keeps itself alive.
So Arthur, how do we measure inflammation levels within the gut?
We measure inflammation with so-called inflammatory markers, which are pro-inflammatory cytokines, as scientists call them. They are gene sequences which are known to influence the inflammatory process, to heat the inflammatory process. These are necrosis factors, for example, NF-kappa B, necrosis factor kappa B, or tumor necrosis factors, TNF-alpha. So nowadays you measure those markers with a PCR machine, and if you find high levels of those markers, you know that inflammation happens in this or that tissue. For example, you observe these parameters in the liver, and then you see if the liver is challenged. If you have high levels of this necrosis factor in the liver, you know that there's a lot of inflammation in the liver, so the liver is challenged. That's what you can see, for example, with if there is a lot of mycotoxin stress. Such inflammatory markers are also produced when inflammation happens. As I mentioned earlier, inflammation keeps itself going on. So if you interrupt the production of those inflammatory markers, if you inhibit those inflammatory markers, you inhibit the inflammatory cascade. We call it a cascade, which is influenced by many precursors, such as stress, pathogens, viruses, and so on. Sangrovit, which is a product based on alkaloids, can directly inhibit this inflammatory marker, NF-kappa B, for example. This means it directly disturbs the inflammatory process and decreases the level of inflammation, and that's what we want.
You mentioned Sangrovit. Can you tell me a bit more about the history and development of the product?
Sangrovit is a product which is on the market since nearly 30 years, and it is one of the best evaluated phytogenic products existing on the market. It has been used in monogastric animals, ruminants, and it has shown that its main effect is on animal performance, animal welfare, and on gut health status. This is due to the fact that the active ingredient of Sangrovit are isoquinoline alkaloids. Those alkaloids directly inhibit the production or the formation of those necrosis factors which we mentioned earlier. So that's why Sangrovit is very effective. For summarizing the positive effects of Sangrovit, we can clearly observe that it decreases our costs in the production. It decreases especially the costs of medication. It improves our production parameters. It improves the animal welfare standard. And that's why this product is used worldwide in various animal species. And that's why it shows very good results in many, many trials and studies.
Thank you very much, Arthur, for joining us.
Thanks for the invitation.
Inflammation negatively impacts animal health and production. Sangrovit is the only natural product proven to inhibit inflammation. Be sure to tune in for the next episode of Item Virtual.